what I can impart to you that would be super helpful pertaining to whatever suffering you are experiencing right now in your life. And what keeps coming up for me is what things in our lives trigger the suffering that we are experiencing. So what are the things that are in our lives that are creating suffering for us, or allowing us to create our own suffering, because that's actually what it ends up being. And if you haven't watched my last video, please go back and watch the last video. It's all about how we create our own suffering with our thoughts. And also, there are things in our lives that have a tendency to trigger the thought process that creates our suffering. And those things are things that are out of alignment with who you are. So what do I mean by that? Let's use, for instance, if you are working in a field, in a job field, or a job that is not what you want to be doing, and or you're working with people who are miserable every day. If you're doing something that you don't want to be doing, and you're doing it actively, your inner dialogue is most likely going to be really negative, because you are not in alignment with who you are. And if you're not self-aware enough at this point, and mind you, we all start that way, we all start in a place where we're not self-aware until we become aware. You don't know what you don't know. So that's part of the point of me making this video. Maybe it can help shed some light on your life enough for you to take action, to make moves, to become in alignment with who you truly are. So if you are working in a position that you absolutely hate, you're working with people that you absolutely hate, your inner dialogue is likely going to be something like, oh, I hate this. I can't believe I have to do this again. Oh, this is terrible. This sucks. Like all this negative voice and negative talk, because you are doing something in your life that is not in alignment with who you are. For me, it's never been a job, because I've always chosen professions that I love. That's just who I am. I can't work a job that I hate. I actually cannot make myself go into work. I will just quit and be unemployed, if I'm honest. For me, it has always been relationship. This is a really big one for a lot of people. For years and years and years, I chose the wrong partners for myself, because I didn't understand what was in alignment for me, because I was living off of my mother's model of codependency, and I'm not a codependent person, I'm an independent person. And it's okay if you're a codependent person. We all are different. I just happen to be independent and would get into relationships that somehow were out of alignment with who I truly was. And part of that was me not knowing who I truly am. Like I said, you don't know what you don't know, and it takes a long time for us to figure out who we truly are and what is in alignment with ourselves. And when it comes to relationships, so many of us want so badly to just be loved, females especially, that we'll get into the first relationship that we can and we'll cling on to it with our, white knuckles, whether it's good for us or not. And because I would do that in relationship, I would end up suffering. And that suffering for me would turn into a deep cycle of depression, and a lot of times would turn into suicidal ideation, because that's kind of the model that I was taught. That's what my family did. if something emotional would come up, and it wasn't addressed, it would turn into depression. That's just how my family expressed their emotion, which is completely dysfunctional. But for me, I never understood that one of the reasons why I was so incredibly depressed and suffering was because the relationships that I would get myself into were so completely out of alignment with who I am. And then, say the last one, and mind you, I was married for 15 years, and he's one of my closest friends. I love him so dearly, and could not imagine my life, without him and without all of the lessons that we learned together. And still, the relationship was not serving of either of us for a very long time, but because we were taught in a certain way, we didn't realize that we could get out of it. And so for me, it created a lot of suffering. And it was how I was thinking about the relationship and what I was thinking about my life in those moments, and not recognizing that, it was just a place that was out of alignment. I was out of alignment. And so if I'm going to bring any message to you, if you're suffering, one, find the cause of your suffering. What is it? Is it your job? Is it your living situation? Is it your relationship with your parents? Is it your romantic relationship? What's the main point of suffering in your life? And look deeper, and I would challenge you to see if you are out of alignment, if what you are experiencing is because you are in a situation that is not aligned with who you are deep inside. And maybe you don't know who you are at this point, and that's okay. It took me a really long time and a lot of work to really figure out who I am in a way where I now am not going to give up who I am for anyone or anything, because I intrinsically know the value of myself, and I just know better than to choose a situation that is going to compromise who I am and push me out of alignment. I did it for a really long time, and so I can say now that that's just not something that I'm willing to do again, and it took a long time. And give yourself time, give yourself grace, but understand that if you are suffering, if you're experiencing mass amounts of suffering, that if you locate the pain point, and then you start thinking to yourself, what am I saying to myself about this situation? Is this situation serving me? Why isn't this situation serving me? And what can I do in order to find a situation that is more in alignment with myself? And the issue right there for most people is that they're terrified of starting a new career. They're terrified of being single and being alone. They're terrified of moving out on their own or trying to find a new living situation. There's just this fear of change, and that fear will keep you in the wrong situation for way longer than you should let it, honestly. It's one of those things where the fear is there, and yes, it's potentially going to be quite challenging, and yes, you might have to take a pay cut, and yes, you might have to get a dinky little place to live, or yes, you might have to be alone for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. But the thing is that the payoff of getting in alignment with who you truly are is so valuable and so freeing that it's worth pushing into the divorce, the change of career, whatever it is that you need to change to be in alignment with who you are. And a lot of us make decisions when we're young based on who we think we are, and that person that we think we are has been dictated to us by the outside world, because our society does not value us finding out who we are from a young age. That's essentially put on us as adults, and we're already far down a path sometimes because we've been told this is what you do, this is who you are, this is what everybody does, and unfortunately that is so far from the truth for most of us that we end up just miserable. And sometimes it takes being extremely miserable to create change, unfortunately. So if you find yourself in suffering and you are continually suffering like I was, it's time to start looking, because you can find alignment, you can find happiness, you can find joy, you can suffer so much less, and you can become in alignment with who you truly are, and you can choose that. And I won't say that it's easy. I'm not going to lie. It is not easy. It's not easy. Life is not easy. It's just not, But that being said, life can be joyful. It can be, lived with a lack of suffering. And that's what I want for you, because I've been able to get to this place where if I suffer, it's so minimal, it's so short-lived, and I have all the tools now to really look at what is causing it and what I need to do to become in alignment with who I am. So I just want that for you. So if you're suffering, take a look at your life. Take a look. Are you living in alignment with who you truly are on the inside? Is your body saying yes to life, or is it saying, no, my God, why are we doing this? Why am I going through this? It's pretty obvious. You can't miss it, and then check your thoughts around what's happening, because you could be keeping yourself in a place of suffering. If you're in a relationship that you don't want to leave, yet you're continually thinking about how terrible the relationship is, I would say that it's time to change your thought process about the relationship and start thinking about, okay, well, how can we make this relationship better together? How can we overcome this? Is this overcomeable? Whatever it might be. Sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. If you're in a career that you like and you want to stay in, but there's something about it that is causing you pain, really look at that and start, instead of thinking about how terrible it is or how horrible Janet is or whatever. Sorry if your name's Janet, you're not horrible. Instead of thinking that way, start thinking of solutions. Become solution oriented, because the only way that we stop our suffering is to stop thinking about what is causing the suffering and perpetuating the suffering by telling ourselves how terrible it is and how terrible we feel, and to start becoming solution oriented. And usually when we become solution oriented, what will start happening is the path that we need to take will start unfolding in front of us. And whether that's to stay in the position that we're in, whatever position it is in life, and just augment it somehow to become more in alignment with us, or with who we are, or whether that path starts leading us toward something completely different. It doesn't matter. You just need to get into a solution-oriented place so that you can start figuring out how to get out of that suffering. And changing your mindset is, of course, the number one thing that you will need to do. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because a lot of us end up with anxiety, we end up with depression, we end up with all kinds of mental imbalances because we are caught in a situation that is not aligned with who we are intrinsically, and we don't even recognize it because we're too busy caught up on the situation to say to ourselves, hey, it's not the situation, it's that the situation isn't right for me. So how do I either change the situation while still in it, or get out of the situation and find a situation that is in alignment with who I am? All right, guys, I hope that's helpful. It's really something that has helped me over the years. And like I said, I'm to a place now where I can choose what's in alignment with myself because I'm so grounded out in who I truly am. And it disallows the fear from pushing me to stay in a situation for too long. So, yeah. All right. Like, subscribe, follow, all of the things. Please leave me comments. Let me know if you have any questions. I am here for you. And just keep going. Remember that you don't know what you don't know, and that you're learning, and that if you are at all on the path of looking to solve your suffering and release your suffering, that you will get there. You just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I know because that's what I did. All right, everybody, I love you and I'm really proud of you, and I will be back soon.